Tasmania is a tiny state by Australian standards, but there's still an awful lot of it yet unexplored. Somewhere in there, some people believe the Tasmanian tiger still lives. To the colony's early settlers, the tiger's existence was fact, not hypothetical. To them, he was a threat, and he was hunted down. By the 1840s, the Van Diemen's Land Company was offering a bounty for his scalp. In the 1880s, one landholder could claim he had lost 448 sheep, allegedly to the tiger. In 1888, the government set a very high bounty of £1 a head, and the days of the tiger were numbered. Thylacine cynocephalus, the pouched dog with a wolf head. The animal is the largest marsupial carnivore. The striped rump and tail are quite unlike any other Australian animal. Its jaw opens very wide and is very powerful. In the 1800s, it was found wherever game was plentiful, but in the first few years of this century, it just disappeared. Whether the thylacine population collapsed because of the shooting or because of a disease epidemic is not known for certain. Since the 30s, there have been several expeditions into the mountains to try and find the survivors, notably the government-sponsored searches of 1939 and 1946. There were reports of tracks and other signs, but the fact remains that since 1930, no report of a sighting of the beast itself has stood up to all scientific examination. Despite this lack of evidence, two men have stayed on the trail.
Come on, get up.
James Malley has spent 13 years and a lot of money on tigers. He has never seen them, but remembers hearing the noise of them fighting when he was a boy. He has become so obsessed with finding the animal that lately he has put on a share farmer so that he can search full time. Jeremy Griffith has raised money anywhere he could to keep going. As a zoology student and now graduate, he has put all that money and all his energies into this work. James Malley and Jeremy Griffith have searched longer for the tiger and more thoroughly than anyone else before them.
I first became interested when I read about the tiger at school, and I inquired a bit more, and the fascination has been sort of compounded ever since, until I just couldn't resist going to find if it was there. Apart from that, after going into it, it seemed there's a fair possibility that it was there. Other, supposedly extinct animals had been found, leadbird's possum and the noisy scrub bird, and many others overseas, and it seemed that there's a good possibility. Certainly there was enough rumour coming out of Tasmania, and there didn't seem to be any factual information about it, and it was there a few years ago, so that it was an unusual animal. It was huge, it was exceptional. It wasn't just an odd species of frog or something, it was something way out on its own.
How long has she been stuck out here in the bush, Jeremy?
Oh, she's been here 4 months. They really thrive out here. She's got food and water here for 2 months. It's designed to last. We service them every month, or I do, and give them more water and food if need be. But some of them are laying eggs, and...
You brought one with you today. What's the point of that?
I'm thinking of setting up another monitor.
What's the monitor?
This is the whole unit. The fowler's the decoy, She's set out of reach of all other predators. Then the area's fenced off with brush. I have a camera up there with a trip line with one natural approach, so that the tiger is supposed to be attracted by the fowl and come in and approach through there, photograph itself.
Do you put these monitors into areas where there have been recent sightings?
Yeah, we have two avenues. One is we religiously monitor sightings that come in, whether they be good or bad. This is since we've been on an intensive survey for the last 6 months. And the other way, we have a systematic process of surveying areas and monitoring them and moving on to another area, surveying it, familiarising ourselves with it.
How many of these monitors do you have in Tasmania now?
We've got 25 out now, and we've got about the northern half of Tasmania just about completely staked out. I'll take this camera out. There's a toy sort of spring wind clockwork clock spring inside there, which keys up, and it just keeps reloading itself, twisting the cube round, winding the next frame on.
That must have been ideal for the purposes that you needed then.
It was. It meant that we could get more than one photograph, because obviously it's being left out here for a month at a stretch, and that's significant, so that the human scent's all gone and the whole area's immune and just smells of foul. And but the trouble was we're limited to 4 flashes, and we had to eliminate all the other animals. So theoretically, only a carnivorous animal, a meat-eating animal, would want to go in to see the fowl, so that leaves out the wallabies and the wombats. The other animals in Tasmania that want to go in would be the tiger, the Tasmanian devil, and tiger cats. And the trip line is set too high for the others, other than the tiger. It took a long time to get it all right. For instance, the first 3 or 4 feet are out of focus, so we had to protect that from the animals from going through here. And originally lay a bit of wood here, but the possums would run along it and trip it. So then I put a bit of conduit, and then the devils would chew the conduit. So then and that had to be camouflaged. So then I put pegs all around it, and that stops the wallabies and the devils and everything else from coming through. And there's only one natural approach, and that's through there. And there's just a lever principle that fires the camera. But we had electrical problems here. We had to increase the voltage on the cameras. A lot of work went in and experimentation to get them right.
You reckon they are right?
Yeah, there's 100% now.
And how much success have you had?
None.
After a year on my own, I met James. He was enthusiastic that the tiger was still there, and he would love to find it. And he, in fact, had followed up a number of sightings in the northwest. And between the two of us, he offered a sort of a local knowledge, and I had a lot of sort of camping experience, and he knew the northwest very well, knew Tasmania, and we worked together fairly well, and we just sort of kicked off. I reckon together we made a pretty good combination.
Any luck, James?
No, everything's quiet out there at the moment, Bruce. There's nothing at all.
What's the point of this gear?
Well, out there in the bush I've got 5 radio transmitters, which is covering an area of about 5 miles in a straight line, and with this gear it saves me going out there and disturbing that area. There was a sighting out there a couple of days ago, and all that gear's out there working for me. It saves me going out disturbing the animals or anything else.
If one of those trip lines were set off, how would you know which one it was?
Well, with this directional aerial, I can define, as I said, about 10 miles away, exactly which one it is. They go off, little bips go off at different sequences of intervals, say 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 18 seconds, and I know spot on which one it is. That's really good. It's really fine, and if the tiger come in there and put his foot down, you get a really good mark on that now.
Why did you pick this point for a track pad?
Well, this is a logical place in this area. It's right next to this track here, and a tiger would travel this track, you know, hunting of a night, because it's a staging place for all the game in this area, all the wallabies. And
how would you make sure that the tiger walked onto that dirt?
well, what we do, we fence it in, so we keep all the other animals out, and across here there's about 6 foot, there's 6 foot of trip line, and that'll be the only entrance to come into this spot through that 6 feet.
What's the trip line for?
That's, if he's only just got to touch that, put about ½ an ounce of weight on it, and that activates the radio transmitter, which I can pick up about 10 miles away from here.
Pretty gory business there, James. What's the idea?
I'm going to hang these up as an extra lure up above here.
I heard a story that the tiger wasn't a scavenger. He had to kill his own game. He tracked game and killed it and had it fresh rather than...
Well, this is right, but all the old bushmen will tell us that any animal that's pushed, and I believe this too, that'll eat dead meat, you know, if it's really pushed. The last tigers that were caught in Tasmania, this was a typical way that they used to catch them, you know, in the late 1920s. They'd put a scent trail either way into a nest of snares, and I think it should still work. They use dead bait, sheep's head, exactly the same what they're using here.
But you don't rely on that alone, do you?
Oh no, I'll put this blood scent trail down at the moment and also an extra lure into this practice pack.
How do you stop the blood from clotting that you get in that can?
In here I've got anticoagulant, which will stop the blood from clotting for about 6 or 7 hours. Without this, it'll just be virtually impossible to lay a blood scent trail. That'll be right there for 7 days in any type of weather. I'll be able to get a perfect footprint, and this is what we're after. We want a really good footprint, and then we've solved this.
Bob, how large is this exhibit that you have at the Launceston Museum in comparison with others?
I think this would probably be the largest single collection in existence. Hobart Museum have some, but I think they have 3 or 4, something like this. They're distributed fairly well throughout the world, but I think ours would probably be the biggest single gathering.
Seems to be a difference in the anatomy of the animals of the ones that we have here, a short neck and a couple of long necks. Was this typical or...?
Well, these are very old mounts, and I would think that they are considerably distorted from what the live animal would be. But I would think this little fellow here would probably be average as far as the length of neck is concerned. I don't think there'd be anything abnormally long or abnormally short.
Well, what are the distinguishing features of the tiger, the things that set us apart from all other animals, dogs, cats and so on?
It is a marsupial, and amongst the marsupials it is distinct because it is the largest of the flesh-eating marsupials, the group we call Dasyurids, and it is now the largest surviving flesh-eating marsupial in existence.
Now, where was the pouch? This is a marsupial that carried its young. Where was the pouch?
The pouch was just under the middle of underneath the belly.
And how many young would it carry?
As far as we know, 4 was the maximum litter. They had 4 nipples, so we assume that they could produce up to 4 young.
I believe that in Victoria there are lots and lots of sightings of Tasmanian tigers over there. Now, that apparently in biological terms is just not possible.
Yes, we generally accept that the tiger is extinct on the mainland of Australia, and this rather worries me a little when I hear of these very good reports from southeastern Australia, equally as good as the ones we get here. And of course the mainlanders or anybody who believes that the Tasmanian tiger is extinct can say, well, you've got good reports, but so have we got them on the mainland, and you accept them as being extinct over there, so your good reports in Tasmania really don't carry a lot of weight.
Hello?
Is that the Tasmanian Tiger Centre?
Yes, James Malley speaking.
Oh, it's Bob Wall from Ulverston speaking, James. I think I've seen the Tasmanian tiger.
Oh, great. What part of the country?
Well, I was coming down from down the Lake Road this afternoon, and I saw this thing on the side of the road. I wouldn't have even given it a second look, except I saw some stripes. They were sort of a browny colour on a yellowy fur.
James Malley and Jeremy Griffith held an exhibition in Launceston in 1972 to get publicity. It was a great success, and the phones ran hot. Wherever possible, the leads received there and in this office were followed up, but the men had to watch their budget. By now, they'd got their camping expenses down to $2 a day, but money was so short that even that was a big expense. Many times over the past 5 years, their work had ground to a halt, to pick up again when a new backer was found. A record was kept of every reported sighting and of every search. Some of the sightings were from the northwest, but most from the northeast, and nearly all in rough going.
A lot of the old bushmen told me that if I wanted to find tigers, I had to go down the Arthur River, and I'd track them along the banks. And being determined to investigate every possibility, I decided I'd go and have a look. The idea was that the wallabies, when they're chased by a dog or something, always run to water to make their final stand. Therefore, you should be able to track the tigers where they chase the wallabies to the water. And I tried to get a canoe or something. That wasn't possible, so I got a tractor tube in the end and just sat in that. And it worked very well. And took off and wandered down the road. The river actually was far too fast. There was no mud flats. It was to find any tracks, so it didn't really succeed as a tiger search, but I did the job. James stood on the bank, and he thought I was going to sink, and he was really excited. He took photographs, and I took off, and he thought he'd never see me again, and I went zooming and just swirling around. You've got no control. You just get swung round and round. But you go along just like a bubble rather than being shot forward like a canoe. You just go along like a bubble on the surface of the water, and as long as there's plenty of current, it's a fabulous way to travel. And for days and days, just drifted along. Tasmania's got a reputation as having some of the most rugged bush in the world. In fact, Edmund Hillary, who conquered Everest, described it as some of the most difficult to penetrate that he'd ever encountered. And this is because of the peculiar horizontal scrub and the barrow of iron, especially those two. And it's very dense in places, and it's just impossible in places to get through. In the southwest, we got caught in a tea tree barrow swamp, and we had to get through. We couldn't go back. We had hardly any food. We had to get across the coast. There's no roads down there. No people lived down there. And it was sort of life and death, it really was, and the adrenaline was pumping through our bodies, and we were taking an alternative, and the only way we could move was to fall over onto the scrub. This is every bushwalker in Tasmania's experience, is fall over into the bush and sort of flatten it, and then get up and scramble on and fall down again, and just take an alternative. James would go in front. He being a bit bigger than I was doing a bit better than I was, but we'd go, and it was a very slow progress, and we were lucky to get out of that.
This little poster that I noticed on the wall, which says, "If a Tasmanian tiger you should find, you'll know by the stripes on his behind. Approach him politely, be very kind, and ask him if he'd really mind. Before you tell, do stop and think, perhaps he'd rather stay extinct." Now that's rather humorous. What's your...
That's a very good point, and that's held by a lot of people. The trouble is, and it's confounded our efforts a little bit, the trouble is that in reality, although there's obvious risks that arise if you locate the animal, the risks by not locating them far outweigh the others. Now, some of the risks, 1080 I've mentioned, just the basic encroachment of human development in these areas. Now, we've found that there's, for instance, that there's hardly a substantial game area left undisturbed in this state. Now, we've got to know where the tiger is and its circumstances to do anything about saving it. If they're okay, there could be circumstances back in the bush in some remote area and it's not being disturbed, but the fact is that the snares are way back and all sorts of hydroelectric schemes are penetrating the last fringes of the unknown.
In the 1920s, there were still 13 thylacines at the Hobart Zoo. Most of these were later sold abroad. This film was taken at Hobart in 1933 of their last remaining specimen. It died the following year. The thylacine was once common in Tasmania, but as early as 1863, the naturalist John Gould warned, when the comparatively small island of Tasmania becomes more densely populated and its primitive forests are intersected with roads from the eastern to the western coast, the numbers of this singular animal will speedily diminish. Extermination will have its full sway, and it will then be recorded as an animal of the past.
Well, this is the Tasmanian devil. He's supposed to be the nearest living relative of the tiger.
Dr. Eric Geiler is a lecturer in zoology at Hobart University and is one of the home state experts on the tiger.
People sometimes get confused between devils and tigers. In fact, it's amazing the number of people who in conversation do suffer from this confusion.
Pretty nasty, are they?
Yes, you can see he's not exactly friendly disposed. He'll, if you could get half a chance, he'd take my finger with him, wouldn't you?
I won't have you hold him there all day. I imagine he's probably better off in the box if he's as
Yeah, we'd have all his
badly tempered as you make
all
out.
his blood down in his head, and he wouldn't like that, would you, old fellow?
Eric, are these plentiful in Tasmania now?
Yes, in many parts of the state you get very great numbers of them running about, so much so that farmers have a bit of trouble with them eating sheep and such like things. But
Well, was it always so?
no, although you can, this is quite true. Although you go into parts of the country where there are lots of them, you don't really see many of them, and they do suffer from fluctuations in numbers. Now, about 1908, these allegedly became very scarce, and it's taken them from 08 to 60 to recover. Well, now the same thing has allegedly happened to the tiger. He became scarce about 08, and now he should be coming back if he's following anything like the same population cycle as these guys. But you can go into thick country and where there are a lot of devils, but you rarely see the things.
This supports the theory that the tiger might be there.
He could easily be there, because if you don't see these where there are a lot of them, what chance have you got of seeing a tiger where there are very few of them?
What other things could people get confused with? Who make sightings, or what are supposed to be sightings of the tiger?
Well, you've got the tiger cat, which is about so long, with a long spotted tail. You've got the native cat, which is about half as big as a tiger cat, which is also spotted on the body but no spots on the tail. People get a bit confused with those. And also you've got the tabby cat, the ordinary pussy cat gone wild. Some of them grow to an enormous size in the bush, and people see these. I've seen one myself on one occasion, which was so big that I was almost certain I'd seen a tiger, but it wasn't until I got a pair of field glasses on that I realized it was a pussy cat, because a pussy cat's tail is carried at about the same sort of an angle as a tiger's, and people can get confused there.
What's your own opinion about the tiger?
Well, I don't know. About 5 years ago, I thought they were pretty sure to come back. But now I'm not so sure, because we've had a lot of people looking for them recently, and they found apparently very little evidence that they're around. And I'm not as happy about their recovery as I used to be. I must confess I'm getting a bit pessimistic.
There are plenty of sightings still, Eric, from people who see these things. What's your opinion of these sightings?
Well, some of them are authentic, but many of them, I think, bear a direct relationship to the distance from the nearest pub. And the closer the pub, the more the sightings.
I've sighted one about 13 years ago.
He saw one, he stopped his car.
Well, they've seen it here and they've seen it there.
I'd bet anything that it was a tiger.
I have no doubt at all that this was a Tasmanian tiger.
The tiger walked right across the road in front of us, or sort of loped across the road.
Oh, within, say, 25 yards?
I'm 90% certain it was a tiger.
Because I think they've heard him bark. And the bark that they told me was exactly like the bark that the tiger gives.
How do they bark?
A little yap. Sort of, whoo, oh, oh. Yeah. And they go along. That's how they.
Have you heard them bark, Tom? You have.
Yes, I heard just one bark after he got out of the snare, you see. And that's where I followed him, but when I tell you what, I thought I was frightened of him while he was in the snare, so I thought, well, while he's out of the snare, he turns on me, I'm off.
When was
I had no hope, but I wished I had took the gun up now, then I could have shot him and proved that it had been one.
When was this, Tom?
Hey? This was about 2 years ago. I'll tell Larry about it.
What's the story? Tell us the story.
Well, I was going into work one morning. I got about 5 stairs set, you see, up on the top of the farm, and anyhow, I ducked around, and when I got there, I got one wallaby out, and when I looked around, here's this other thing tangled up in the wire fence, you see, and he's going a treat. And his teeth and his mouth pointing out, you know. I thought, crikey, don't like to look at you. I've never seen one before, only from a distance. I had seen one cross a road. Me and Al Farn seen one cross a road one time. And, but we couldn't prove, you know, really what it was. So anyhow, I thought, well, how am I going to get this thing? I'm a bit late for work now, as it is. So I ran back to the barn and I got a chaff bag. And I went back and I thought, I wonder can I get him in it, get him alive? And if I had a thought of the gun, I would have shot him now to see that there was a Tasmanian, because you feel like a liar, you know, to say you've seen one because he wouldn't laugh at you.
What happened when he broke the snare?
Oh, he just went through choking, you know. We're going, and he started just doing, you know, a bit of a bark, and I said, well, mate, I said, I'm late for work, you can get going.
You frightened of him?
Well, I hadn't seen one before, so wouldn't I be frightened of it? I didn't know what I had.
They won't bite us near. You can hook them with a foot and they won't bite us near.
No,
they don't even, if you get in amongst the teachers, they'll chop it. They chop everything. They don't bite, they just chop.
Yeah, what do you mean chop it? I mean,
just get off like a bit my finger off.
He had a clear place right
The devil cut your finger straight off without anything else.
Marks in the wire.
He cut that off there.
What did?
A devil did.
The devil did?
A devil cut that finger straight off there. It just went off like that. The chap said to me, oh, he said, you told me lies. He said, you cut that off. I said, no. I said, devil put it off. I said to Bob, I said, look, I said, a cat took my finger off. He brought the light round and had a look. He said, it's gone all right.
Ken, you actually caught the tiger once. What was this? Tell us the whole story.
Oh, well, the dog caught the tiger. The tiger went over a log and stopped there. Then the dog went on top of the log and I don't know whether he jumped off to a bloody fellow. Anyhow, when he got there, he had to fight, didn't he?
Listen, all these stories that you hear about tigers, how much of them do you think is fact and how much of them you think is fiction? Do they get better as the night goes on and the drinks get a bit longer?
Oh, well, about 10% of them might be. You know, true, I don't know.
What do you reckon, Tom?
Well, if a man sees one, it must be right. See if he can tell anything but what he's like. To my mind, they're not like a dog in a way, only they've got more of a longer nose and their teeth very sharp, a narrow sort of a mouth.
Yeah, but what about the stories? Do you reckon the stories are right or are they...
I say they are. I say they are after I've seen this, otherwise I wouldn't have believed it.
We've even heard somebody can divine for tigers.
Can be right, in a way, if they say it's for water. Now, you say vine for water. Well, you've got to have the forky stick, you've got to give your shoulders right up, your hands right up, you see, and then your stick works down. But I've seen a fellow who would work up, and I said, well, we all know water comes from up there.
Yes, well, the tiger would have to be full of water with the stick, wouldn't it?
No, well, that's it, you hear of all these yarns that...
We have some extraordinarily convincing sightings at times, and it's almost to deny them would seem to insult your own intelligence. And this is a good example, one of the best examples we've had. About 18 months ago, these chaps they raced pigeons, and hawks had been plaguing their pigeons in flight, and they decided to try and trap some of them. They've been setting these pigeon coop with the rabbit trap beside it, and to catch them, and they've been going round them in the morning, and they found what they claim was a tiger in it. Now, there was 3 men, grown men, and 2 young men, 16-year-old or so boys with them. And they all described this animal, and you talked to the chaps, and they were extraordinarily convincing.
One chap had this by the tail. Now, there's no way in the world that anyone who could be so close to a tiger as that could make a mistake, surely.
This is what you'd imagine. To deny it would seem incredible. They had the animal by the tail. They had to get a paling out of a fence and pry the trap open and let it go, and they watched it go down the hill, and they saw it, and they described the stripes perfectly, and they even described the genitals properly, which was incredible. And it was just faultless in every way.
Well, okay, so you're convinced, right?
No, not at all. This is illustrating the degree that people can be convinced they've seen a tiger, and apparently it's faultless.
Why couldn't it have been a tiger then?
Well, the circumstances are just too unbelievable. There's Launceston, literally almost in stone's throw. There's a highway, and it is in stone's throw, and there's vehicles going along it all the time. We're surrounded with farmland. For this to be a tiger here would be just impossible. The next step is someone claiming to see a tiger in the GPO in Launceston.
Well, you're saying that these chaps made it up then?
No, the whole point about sightings that we've found out is that these people aren't lying. They believe they've seen one, but it's not a question. We're not questioning their integrity. We're questioning their interpretation.
What the Dickens could it have been then?
I'd say you'd have to say that all things considered, that you would have to say that more likely to have been a dog.
The point is, you could go so close you could walk past a tiger no more than 10 feet away.
Is he out there, do you think?
Yes, he's definitely there. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that there's a tiger in Tasmania.
What about you, Jeremy?
Well, no, I don't think it is anymore. We've exhausted every avenue of trying to locate them. We've tried everything, short of nothing.
You don't think
really.
the tiger's out there now?
No.
Well, I disagree, Bruce. I'm totally convinced it's there. There's no doubt about this.
Up till now, it's been a complete mystery. There's been a lot of reports and no evidence, no knowledge, just a lot of confusion and mystery. And the situation...
So you haven't proved anything, really?
We haven't proved it's not there. You could never do that. You could never prove that the animal's extinct. You could prove that it was there.
If you found one?
If you found one, or some proof. And,
has all this been worthwhile, then?
Oh, my word. Very worthwhile. Necessary. Vitally necessary. We had to know that. You know, it was ridiculous. You can't have a situation where, you know, there might be there, nobody knows.
But still nobody knows, do they?
No, but it might be there and nobody had any idea. At least now they can say that someone has tried to save the animal from extinction.